Okay, today we're going to do a part 2 on this Troy-Bilt riding lawnmower. We're going to adjust the valves and change the valve cover gasket. The valve cover gasket leaks pretty bad when you're running the engine. It's really common on these Kohler Courages. We're going to take the valve cover off and, like I said, adjust the valves. And I'll explain how to do that, and I'll explain how to seal the valve cover so it doesn't leak anymore. First of all, we're going to take this cover off the engine. It's 4 8mm bolts or 5/16 bolts. Once the 4 bolts are out, the cover should lift off. You have to pull the dipstick tube out. One thing to make sure is if you have a lot of debris, a mouse nest, or anything right here on your engine, make sure you clean it out. On Briggs & Strattons, it'll cause them to overheat, and it'll cause the valve cover gasket, or excuse me, it'll cause the head gasket to blow, and you don't want that. So, okay, next there is 5 or 6 10mm bolts around the valve cover. We're going to take all them out. And they are 10mm. This hose just pulls out. Well, that's great. Somebody already tried to torque this down and they snapped one of the bolts off. Probably because it was leaking and they thought they could fix it by tightening it up. I'm going to take this cover off the exhaust too. I believe I need a 3/8 socket for that. Okay, it's just 4 bolts holding that on, and that cover comes right off. Guess I got one more to get out. Okay, now once you pull this valve cover off, you are going to get some oil coming out. So be prepared for that. Shouldn't be much, but these gaskets are cork and they are known to leak. I have a new cork one, but I'll show you what to do to prevent them from leaking. Okay, next we're going to pull the spark plug out. We need the engine at top dead center. And you need a 5/8 spark plug wrench. Wow, that wasn't very tight. Spark plug looks alright. It's a little white on the end, but that's fairly normal for these. Okay, now to find top dead center, I'm going to put something into the spark plug hole and turn the engine over until the piston is all the way at the top. I'll be very careful when you do this. Right there you can see it. Push the piston up. Okay, right there it's all the way up. Now take your valves. Now they're both tight, so I must not be on top dead center. I must need to rotate it 180 degrees. Okay, right there. Back. Okay, now they're both loose. both intake and exhaust valves are loose. This being the intake, this the exhaust. Okay, now we're on top dead center. We'll get our feeler gauge and we'll check to see what they are. They might be fine. A lot of times if your engine's ticking, rattly, from the top end, the valve's been adjusted. Or another common issue is your engine is hard to start, like your battery's dead, it turns a little bit and then stops. It gets stuck on the compression stroke. There's an automatic decompression release inside the engine that if the valves aren't adjusted just right or close to correct, you won't be able to turn the engine over. You'll have what feels like too much compression. Okay, now the valve specs for this are the intake is supposed to be 5 thousandths and the exhaust is supposed to be 7 thousandths. Now that's right from the Kohler manual. I saw online where some people said between 3 and 5 thousandths for both of them. I'm going to set them to what the manual says. So this is the 5 thousandths feeler gauge. We're going to put it in between the rocker arm and the end of the valve. I'd say that's perfect. Now it goes in there, but there's some resistance. You can put it in there, pull it out. There's a little bit of resistance. It doesn't fall right out, but it's not impossible to push in there. So we're not gonna mess with that one. Now we'll go to the exhaust valve, which should be 7 thousandths. Well, same thing. We're going to put it between the rocker arm and the end of the valve. Now this one is perfect too. It goes in there, a little bit of force to get it in there. Doesn't slide around, but there's some resistance there. And it's not real tight, but it's not real loose. So that's good. If you need to adjust them though, what you do, to get a better camera angle, is there's a Torx headed bolt inside of this nut. You loosen that up and then you loosen this nut part. I believe it's a 10 millimeter. Yeah, the nut itself is a 10 millimeter, so you need a 10 millimeter wrench and then whatever size Torx bit fits in there, which I'm not sure off the top of my head. But anyways, you loosen the Torx bit and then you loosen that bolt quite a bit, or inside of the nut. Okay, what you do next is you put your feeler gauge in here, and then you would tighten up this nut. You need an open-end wrench with an open-end 10 millimeter wrench. You would tighten up that nut until you would have about this resistance. And then you would hold your wrench so this nut doesn't spin, and then you take your Torx bit and you tighten down that center bolt. That locks it in place. After you do it, you should rotate the engine over a few times and confirm that your valves are within the spec that you set them. Okay, well our valves are good, so we're going to not worry about them. We are going to do the gasket though because it was leaking. That's the whole reason why we're in here. Okay, now we got to clean this surface up real well. Surface on here, on the cover itself, and where it seats on the engine block. Alright, I just take a little bit of brakes parts cleaner, spray it on a paper towel, and wipe all along this surface. Now if you have old gasket stuck to this, you need to take a razor blade and scrape it off. But this isn't bad. I'm just using the brakes parts cleaner to get any oil residue off of this surface, because you definitely don't want any oil on there because that will cause it to leak. Alright, before we go any further, I need to get this broken bolt out of there, or what's left of the bolt. Okay, I got the bolt drilled out and retapped. Now I'm gonna get the gasket ready. What I do is I'll put black Ultra Permatex RTV on both sides of the gasket. Both sides of this cork gasket. I'll smear it on this side, I'll smear it on this side. I'll stick it on the valve cover, bolt it on, let it sit for an hour. Then after the hour I'll come back and I'll torque it down. When I first put it on I only make it hand tight. I've had good luck using this, so I mean there might be better things on the market, but this is what I'm going to use. Now you don't need a lot, but just a thin coating on here. Smear it all around. Okay, once you get one side coated, I like to stick it down on the valve cover itself, and then I'll put RTV on this side. It's going to move around a little bit, but it's no big deal. We'll position it once we put the valve cover on. Okay, once you have all the RTV smeared on there, we can stick the valve cover to the cylinder head. Put a couple bolts through it just to keep it in position. Oops, that one fell out. And then we'll just line up the bolts. And then finger tight is all you need for an hour. After the hour's up, we'll torque them down. Alright, after an hour we'll be back in and torque it down the rest of the way. Okay, it's been an hour. I torqued all these bolts to 65 inch-pounds, that's what the manual says. Now I'm going to reassemble it all, and I'll wait 24 hours for that gasket maker to fully cure, and then I'll start it tomorrow and see if it leaks. So thanks for watching. Putting the cover back on, and it's all reverse process of taking it off. So thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, comment down below. Have a good day.